And the fifth and final law of wealth is the law of energy. How do we get energy that comes from within that enables us to do what we want to do, what we need to do to stay connected with life, alive and sparkling and delighted? Now, I get to hang out with some amazing people because I choose to put myself in spaces and rooms with people that inspire me, make me want to be a better version of myself, let me look and challenge what I believe is possible and true for myself. And a few years ago, I was meeting up with one of my mastermind colleagues in a business mastermind I have, and I met her at her office. This was pre-COVID, when we still had physical offices in some cases. And her office was absolutely buzzing with her team and her staff, and it was remarkably clean, and it was an organized space, and people were moving around, connecting and meeting. And there was a lot of what the Chinese will call happy noise, that buzz of people energized. You can feel that energy of a place. And after seeing this, we went out to breakfast and we had a ball talking about our goals, what was happening in her life, all the projects she was doing personally in her business, what their vision are, what we were creating. And I semi-jokingly said to her, like, wow, doesn't all of this effort, this activity, how do you do all these things? Isn't it just really tiring at times? And she looked at me and she stopped in her tracks and she said a statement that really hit me. And it was powerful because it reflected something that I knew that was already true in my life. Because over and over, people say to me, Anne, you've got such amazing energy. How do you do it? How do you fit in all of the things you're able to experience and do? Your life's already been so full and vast and varied. Like, wow, where does this energy come from? And she said to me, I don't think of it as effort. I get to do this. How amazing is that? I get to do this. I don't have to do this. So the first is this incredible power of choice. I get to do this. I have fun. I get to create and make a difference. So she had a very powerful meaning. And I love what I do. And I thought about this and I really landed for me the difference between energy and effort, force and power. There's such a delicate balance about not putting in effort and forcing things. But creating and living the life we want does take energy. And so most people, when they're trying to succeed as a goal, is trying to overcome, force it. What do? I've got to work harder. I've got to put in effort. I've got to struggle. It's going to be difficult. I've got to use willpower, determination. And often it's they're fighting against themselves, sort of moving forward, but with the brake on. Often what's happening is we're focusing on the pain, what we've got to give up, the sacrifice. I see so many people this coming into their wealth creation with this energy of like, oh, I have to. It's an obligation, almost a resentment of I'm going to be restricting myself, sort of limiting. No wonder it's really hard to maintain that. Now, if the effort has anything to do with success, with this forcing, this sort of way, we would see successful people being absolutely exhausted all the time and unsuccessful people bouncing off the walls with joyous energy. But it's not the case. Now, yes, there are some grumpy people who are supposedly successful, but often there's a lot of people who work really, really hard, but are poor and drained and exhausted. So, this energy versus effort can sometimes be a really difficult concept to describe. And it also comes from within first, rather than expecting us to be energized outside. How do we love what we do because we bring the love first to that place? How do we bring ourselves first to an experience? How do we start with wonder and awe and gratitude and delight? And that, I think, the first one is remembering the choice. We get to do this thing called our life. We get to be great leaders to our money. We get to make the choices that fill up our lives. This is something that we have agency for. We don't have to. Another lovely quote I love is, There are no obligations, just consequences. When we stop the shoulding and I have to and I have no choice, this is where we get drained and depleted. We go, no, I get to do this and I choose to. There's no obligation, there's just consequences. So I don't have to eat that healthy meal, but the consequences of not doing so are, well, am I happy with that? I don't have to pitch up for work and do the recording and do that. I get to do this. And it's a choice. And so this first part of are you being forced to, is there some sort of obligation, necessity, can really deplete versus I get to. It is a way of agency and choice starts at energy. So energy versus force is a bit like carrying a cup of coffee across a room. If you really fill up a cup of coffee, or maybe it's a tea or it's a matcha, whatever your fuel of choice is. Now, if you really fill it right up and you go tight and you focus on carrying it, you pay too much attention to it, not around, that becomes your obsession. No matter how hard you try not to, you'll end up spilling it. Something just happens. Now, on the other hand, if you whip up that cup of coffee and go, okay, I'm going to get there, and you slosh through the room, focusing on everything else, you're going to spill it as well. So there's a zone in between where there's just enough attention paid, but there's a deep okayness as you glide through. Not too much, not too little, a bit like Goldilocks, just enough. There's focus and intention and attention, but we're not stressing out or putting effort into it and clutching too tight. So the next time you're all strung out and getting stressed, I have to do this, it's terrible. Notice what happens to our breath, our physiology. Yes, coming back to that triad, it makes a big difference. Are we breathing? Are we dropping those shoulders? Are we approaching life from the centered, hey, those decisions, the choices we do? What are we focusing on? Are we focusing on all the ways that we're behind, we're not good enough, we haven't caught up with? Are we focusing on the gaps of all the things in our life? Or are we focusing wow, the wins we had? I did in that moment choose to exercise, or I did take that action and squeeze the juice, invested first. All these things have a big impact, our focus. What is the language we're using? So when you go into this powerful place, a state where you set your intention of where you're going, you give attention to everything around you, but you keep moving steadily forward. You notice the wins and the gains. You're acknowledging that. You're really filling up your tank with wins. This is the amazing paradox. There's this peace, this joy, this effortlessness that comes in when we start coming into flow, when we're present here. So often the more effort we put into something, the more energy we lose, because that contraction, that side, that fear, that lack. And the more energy we put into something, the more effortless it becomes. I love so many aspects of being in the wild and my home in the bush, and I love going on game drives. And I often say to myself, if I could just remember what it feels like, my state when I go on a game drive. And not everybody is like this. When I set off in my game viewer and I drive, I set out and I am in a state of wondrous expectation. First, I put myself out into the world. I get into that vehicle, I drive out to put myself into a situation to be able to see animals, possibility. If I'm just sitting behind my computer, well, then I'm never going to get to experience those things. We've got to put ourselves into that place and then to expect great things. I don't demand them. I'm in a place of anticipation. I'm alert. I'm looking out. I'm loving what I'm receiving. I'm deeply grateful for every little bird, dung beetle that comes along. But there is a one wow, I wonder what could be around the next corner. Not because that game drive will only be worthy if I've ticked off a certain thing. Not because I come from a knowing that I'm already complete. I'm already where this is already just the most wondrous experience. Everything on top of it is a bonus. Can you come at life, your energy already enough, already full, and go, I get to do this? Wow, I wonder what great, wonderful things I can explore and experience. And whatever it is, I either win or I learn something. How amazing. Can you come at your life with the aspect of a game drive, knowing there's no obligations. There is no entitlement. In the wild, the elephant isn't entitled, required to step out and show itself to you, or the leopard. No, you just may or may not chance upon them. And if you do, wow. And if you don't, wow too. So there's another thing that really impacts our energy, and these are incompletions. When we have massive to-do lists of all the things that we believe we should have done, had in place in order to be okay. So this is again this fine paradox between having great goals and expectations as this smorgasbord of possibility of what we can do versus I have to complete all of these things in order for me to be okay. If I don't get through this today, then I've failed. We feel exhausted. That's why I love the idea of having a done list rather than a to-do list. Yes, we how we come from that subtle energy that we come from something makes a big difference. But when we have massive lists of incompletions that we believe we need, goals to do, experience to have just admin tasks in order for us to be okay, and if we also believe there is a point where we will finally have done everything and then we'll finally be able to relax and enjoy our life, it's the most devastating illusion that if I could just be more efficient, I'll be better, because these things literally drain our energy. So one of the most important points to start is, together with this energy of wondrous expectation that we get to do this, is also this deep settling into our finitude and knowing and being okay to sit in some of the grief of it. We're never going to get to experience and do and have all of the things we hope to and want to do. And that's okay. When we can accept that limitation, which makes us more available to be okay, we can put those things down. Because when we try and do it all and get more efficient inside, we drain our energy and we're not available to actually get the nourishment of what's already in our lives. So this is so important. The more the things we say we have to do, must do, the more it fills up our life. But that doesn't mean we don't make these commitments. But it's also really important to notice what are the things you're believing you have to do, complete, that are no longer right for you. And there are three key ways we can complete things. Is first to look at what are the things you say you should be doing that are no longer applicable. Are there goals in your life that have long passed? It's okay. You can deem them complete. They're done. You can just close them out. What about your inbox? Do you have a whole lot of open emails that you believe you're going to get to? These things all drain you. Delete those. Completions restore energy. You can complete things by tidying up, putting in place systems that help you be more efficient. But first and foremost, no, you can't do that all. So be really discerning about what you choose to put on your plate. And those things that are on your plate, find ways to get rid of those that are no longer suitable on there. So you can just deem them complete. You can get rid of them. And those that are still aligned to you, then make a plan to make them happen. And look at your rules. Have you also got such a rule that in order for them to be complete, they have to have such massive sort of, before you can take action, do you need all the information? Can you also allow yourself to have imperfect action towards completing things, moving forward on these? Every step we take, these things restore energy to us. When we've got a whole lot of incomplete things, decisions that need to be made, this overload, clutter in our lives, washing that needs to be done, simplify, remove this, because these drain energy. Decisions that need to be made, complete things and move forward. And as I say, it's not just physical things in our life and actions, it's also emotional. Debt is a huge incompletion. It's a hanging incompletion as an obligation that still needs to be filled. Having outstanding debts, physically in terms of money, but also people we owe to, obligations that we've made, commitments that we've made, things that we said we'll get to. These become the emotional incompletions. Yes, I'll get to that. Notice if you say yes to things too easily, these create a debt, a burden, emotional burden. And there can also be unresolved things in past relationships. Somebody, maybe you just need to say, I'm sorry, or end a relationship. You need to let things go. Perhaps the people who are no longer around, but there's an incompletion, something that wasn't said. You can write them a letter in the past. Use timeline and strategy to go back, complete these things so they're no longer threaded and hooked on you. Now, say there are three ways to complete things. One is you can just get on and complete it. You can just focus. Yes, there are some great efficiency and effectiveness strategies to get more of your time, and just get down and just friggin' do it. Yes, JFDI, just friggin' do it. Get shit done. Get off your ass, complete it, tick it through, have fun, make it fun, get a list, plow through. You can also schedule things to complete it and follow through on that. It's really important that if we actually have a system that we trust, then scheduling something isn't procrastination. So we can go, okay, I need a chunk of time, make that time, schedule it, and do it. Because your unconscious will start trusting you. And then instead of waking you up at 3 a.m. going, woohoo, here's all the things you haven't done, or go, oh, okay, no, I trust it. Anne's got that under control. It's there. So this is about mastering this most precious resource we have, our time. But rather than trying to master it, it's utilizing it, getting the most value from it, and noticing where you focus first and foremost. Where do you put your energy, your focus in your time? Are you directing that to the things that fill you up, or are you filling it up with low, easy to do checklists? Are you going to your email, your social media, your WhatsApp thread because it makes you feel like you're getting little wins, but in fact, they're just distractions? Do those big chunks first in the day, schedule them, automate it, stick to it. Automate as much as you possible so you're not even having to use energy on those things. Your bill paying, your investments. And the third way to complete something is just to declare it complete. Throw it away. There are a lot of obligations that you've made to other people. Maybe there's thousands of those reports that you've downloaded that you know you're never going to get to. Get rid of them. Throw them out of your life. This also links to wealth law number 5. Create that vacuum. Clutter. Declutter your energetic space. Declutter your time, your obligations. These are draining energy from you. Make that phone call you've been meaning to make for years. Get rid of some of those things. Look at your goals. Are they still appropriate? Are they still there? And maybe you haven't done it. It's okay. Maybe it no longer fits. We're allowed to change our mind. Give yourself permission to go back and say, it was a yes then, but it is no longer now. We need to learn and practice saying, is this still aligned to me? Go and write down all of the things you're working on in the projects and really go, are these the things that are going to move the needle? Are these the things that are most aligned, that absolutely are going to bring me the most bang for my energetic buck of my life force? And get rid of the other things, outsource them, delegate them if they must be done. This is how you bring energy back into your life. Do fewer things really well. Deem other things complete. And come at life knowing that you get to do this. You don't have to.